Reports of multiple buildings on fire and many people injured after a fertilizer plant near Waco, Texas, in the town of West, exploded Wednesday evening.
Let's start with those New Jersey prisoners. An audit there revealed 20,000 inmates racked up $24 million in welfare benefits over 2 years.
Auto Backup uploads your photos to the cloud. Auto Highlight sorts through to find duplicates and poorly exposed pictures. Auto Enhance fixes everything from brightness to focus. And then Auto Awesome takes groups of photos snapped in a row and creates GIFs for you.
To be specific, 41% of men with ADHD were obese compared to 22% who didn't have the disorder.
For the third year in a row, the American College of Sports Medicine has ranked the Twin Cities #1. Minneapolis-St. Paul is joined in the top 5 by Washington, D.C., Portland, San Francisco, and Denver.
In a poll from the Pew Research Center, Romney claimed a 4-point lead nationwide, 49 to 45% over President Barack Obama, with some key demographics taking a hard right turn from past surveys. A Gallup poll showed a tie between the candidates just 4 days after Obama led by 5 points.
In Zombies Run, you're part of a complex storyline that involves picking up supplies for a community surviving a zombie apocalypse. And at certain intervals, you're alerted that zombies are nearby. And if you don't pick up the pace, you'll have to pitch some supplies to keep from being caught.
Crazy ants, on the other hand, don't have established colonies, so they go everywhere, invading homes and nesting in walls and crawl spaces, even damaging electrical equipment by swarming inside appliances.
James Andrew Miller, who co-authored Those Guys Have All the Fun, says this layoff is rare for ESPN and will be painful, but also says the company will still be hiring, suggesting that it's just those specific jobs that won't be refilled.
That list includes Oregon, Rhode Island, Delaware, Minnesota, Colorado, Hawaii, and New Jersey.
This week, you might have seen him floating with his guitar covering David Bowie's Space Oddity.
Ground control to Major Tom.
He's also showed us what happens when you wring out a wet washcloth in space, what crying looks like in space, and how astronauts on the ISS throw up, something I'm sure all of us really wanted to picture.
Most of the participants were male with female partners. Here's what they found. About 7.2% of partners had oral HPV. 5% of women had the virus, which is about what the general population has. Only 2.7% of women had the cancer-related HPV-16, which none of the male partners had. Oral HPV was higher among the male partners, 29% compared to only 5% of the female partners, and no cancer or pre-cancers were detected in the partners who had a visual oral exam.
It started with an audit that flagged $18 million in suspicious welfare payments. That included 1,164 cases where people raked in a total of $2.39 million, anywhere from 6 months to 2 years after they'd been reported dead.
For MSN News, I'm Candace Avilés. In political talk this Sunday, the Obama administration has worked aggressively in the last few days to pin the blame on Republicans refusing to close tax loopholes as part of a deal. In his weekly address, the president had this to say.
Unfortunately, it appears that Republicans in Congress have decided that instead of compromising, instead of asking anything of the wealthiest Americans, they'd rather let these cuts fall squarely on the middle class.
But on CNN's State of the Union, Connecticut Governor Dan Malloy had some very harsh words for the NRA and its Vice President Wayne LaPierre. Malloy just signed strict new gun laws into effect last week.
Wayne reminds me of the clowns at the circus. They get the most attention.
For National Journal, I'm Zach Toombs, and here's what you missed on the Sunday political talk circuit. An all-out blitz on the major Sunday shows as the White House tamps down a string of controversies. And the GOP paints a broad picture of an administration plagued by scandals.
Actually, there is a culture of intimidation throughout the administration. The IRS is just the most recent example.
Republican Senator Susan Collins said this on CNN's State of the Union.
It's very disappointing that the president hasn't personally condemned this and spoken out. The president needs to make crystal clear that this is totally unacceptable in America.
To be fair, White House spokesman Jay Carney did denounce the IRS actions at a press briefing Friday.
I'm Bryce Sander for TV Replay. The longest-lasting duo in The Voice history and the only guys left in the competition this year, the Swan brothers took the stage for top 8 performance tonight. Buddy TV says while setting the whole world on fire is a valid thing to be concerned about, the show was renewed for season 2, so that scenario is unlikely. Because Jonathan was bizarre and maybe a little drunk. He showed up and asked Des to go to a non-existent fantasy suite with him on night 1. She declined, but Jonathan was persistent and built his own fantasy suite in the mansion.
I just want to get her and me alone, and then I'm going to try to kiss Des around the mouth. My mom says I'm good looking, and my love tank has not been depleted for years.
The New York Daily News thought Jewel did no disservice to June Carter Cash, though the acting was not remarkable. But the film really shined in its musical scenes.
Down, 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 and the flames went higher, and it burns, 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 the ring of fire.
The annual developers conference titled Google I/O began Wednesday with a kickoff event in San Francisco. And as usual, the tech giant presented tons of updates to make the company more money and our lives a little bit easier. So here they are, the top 5 highlights from Google I/O 2013. First, Google Maps gets an upgrade, a big one. Google Maps seems to be getting into the business of discovery instead of just finding. If you want to know where something is, just click it and directions will show up. But along with the directions comes recommendations, coupons, and ratings. Also, there's been a full integration of Google Earth, which notably caused a room of software developers to ooh and ah. Second, while Google Plus still lags behind Facebook and Twitter, the company's social media platform will soon boast a revamped chat service. With the new Hangouts, Google combined its video chat service, Messenger, and Google Talk. This new feature will also sync your messages no matter what device you're using. So if you're chatting on your desktop, you don't have to worry about your phone buzzing with every new message. Third, Google Plus's new photo feature does everything but take pictures for you. Once your phone is plugged in, the automated employee begins doing the dirty work. And just when you thought you had Twitter Music figured out, here comes another streaming music service that knows what you want to hear. You may have already heard of Google's all-access streaming music service. Considering Google is still the #1 search engine worldwide, it was a no-brainer for the tech giant to try to help you find new music. Google Music will offer personal recommendations for its users based on what you have listened to, though early critics say the service doesn't really separate itself from the competition. And finally, the event included a surprise appearance by Google co-founder Larry Page, giving his view on the role of technology in modern life. Page said technology should do the hard work so that people can get on with doing the things that make them happiest in life. For Newsy, I'm Jamal Andrews.
Nearly a quarter of U.S. states now allow same-sex marriage after Minnesota became the 12th state to legalize it on Tuesday. The state's Democratic Governor Mark Dayton signed the landmark bill, making his state the second in the Midwest after Iowa to approve gay marriage. On Monday, a nearly 4-hour-long debate in the state Senate ended with a narrow, mostly partisan vote. This comes 2 years after the then Republican-led Minnesota legislature backed an entirely different bill, a ban on gay marriage that voters shot down in a proposed constitutional amendment last November. According to the Star Tribune, some of the turnaround was the result of another controversial issue, guns. Some lawmakers reportedly reconsidered their positions after realizing a no vote on both gay marriage and gun control would be politically damaging. Minnesota is the third state in the past 2 weeks to legalize gay marriage, following Rhode Island and Delaware. Gay couples in Minnesota will be able to tie the knot beginning August 1st. For Newsy, I'm Elizabeth Hagedorn.
Beware, crazy ants are on the loose in the southeast. No, really, they're called crazy ants. And according to a new study, they are so crazy that those dreaded fire ants can't even hold their own against them.
Fire ants are a real pain, very invasive, but the crazy ant is reportedly worse, and it's displacing the fire ants in a few places. People are actually saying they want their fire ants back.
No way. I mean, have you ever been stung by a fire ant? Ouch! Ugh! Well, actually, according to Live Science, compared to the crazy ant, fire ants are kind of polite. Saying they live in your yard, they form mounds, and they stay there. And they only interact with you if you step on their mound, as you can see here. Whereas crazy ants, on the other hand, don't have established colonies, so they go everywhere, invading homes and nesting in walls and crawl spaces, even damaging electrical equipment by swarming inside appliances.
The ants are native to South America and were first discovered in the U.S. in 2002. Since then, 21 counties in Texas have established populations of those crazy ants.
But some good news, the crazy ant is actually a pretty slow mover compared to the fire ant, only advancing about 650 feet a year. So the spread of the invasive short-tempered ant can be slowed. Just make sure they're not catching a ride on your clothes and bags or other hiding spots. That's reportedly the primary method the crazies spread. For Newsy, I'm Jasmine Bailey.
Plans to make a full-scale version of the ship that made the Kessel Run in less than 12 parsecs have been announced. The full-scale Millennium Falcon project is working on a replica of the iconic ship from the original Star Wars trilogy. The project's founder, Chris Lee, has even purchased an 88-acre plot of land in Tennessee to build a 114-foot-long spaceship. Well, as Yoda put it, do or do not, there is no try. The group took that to heart and is going to make the ship just for fun. The project is going to be built and funded fully by Star Wars fans and contributors. The group working on the project also doesn't really know when it will be completed, but as Manolith reports, once it is done, it will result in a Millennium Falcon with perfectly accurate dimensions, sound effects, lighting, Jarek or hollow chess table, and everything else. Well, almost everything. The weapons won't work and it won't fly. Details, details. The full-scale Millennium Falcon project overview says the plan is to create an exact replica. Lee also admitted he was a bit off his rocker with this idea, saying, "Yes, I have completely lost my mind, just like most of my friends and family say, except for those close Star Wars fan friends who say, 'Cool, can I help?'" The website also details everything from the exact dimensions of the interior and exterior of the ship to detailed diagrams of each of the components of the ship. In an interview with the BBC, Lee said he has a master plan for the land as well as the Falcon. He wants to make it into an attraction for school field trips.
Space where a school could send kids, could say, let's go spend a week at this retreat, learn how to weld, and oh, by the way, there's a spaceship out there that they're working on that's pretty awesome that we could contribute to.
FullScaleFalcon.com does say Lucasfilm knows about their plans to build the replica, and out of respect for their intellectual property, they're not publicly soliciting funding. For Newsy, I'm Zach Toombs. Multiple sources, The Real Story.
An American Airlines flight was forced to land after a female passenger chose to repeatedly serenade fellow passengers with Whitney Houston's classic song, "I Will Always Love You."
We'll always love you.
No photos are allowed to be taken on the aircraft.
The flight was scheduled to travel from Los Angeles to New York City, but made an unscheduled stop in Kansas City after 6 hours to remove the a cappella singer. KCTV quotes a Kansas City airport spokesman saying the woman was being disruptive and was removed from the plane for interfering with the flight crew. A federal air marshal in the aircraft subdued the woman and put her in cuffs and removed her from the plane. American Airlines reported to ABC News police met the flight and took the woman into custody. The plane was refueled and continued to JFK, landing with less than an hour delay. You probably heard flight attendants in the video saying no photography was allowed, but since there's a video, at least one passenger broke the rules. According to KMBC, that passenger said the woman screamed for an hour on the flight. He also tweeted that he had his headphones on and volume up, but could still hear her. The woman reportedly claimed her outburst happened because she is diabetic. She was released after an interview, but was not allowed to continue on to her final destination. No word if she's still singing in Kansas City. For Newsy, I'm Christian Bryant.